Saw dudes. In one of my recent videos, Bootless Whale 1318 asked, if I may be so bold, would you consider making a build that utilizes Vex, Mythoclast, and Rain of Fire? Of course, I'll make a build for you. In fact, I've been prepping this video since the newest update. Today's build makes use of the newest strand aspect for Warlocks, WEAVEWALK, which was recently disabled, so doing play testing was difficult. Since it's been fixed, I can now recommend everything in this build with confidence. Anyway, the reason why I'm so excited to make this build is because so many exotics are good with it. It is essentially a 3-in-1, with the choice between Rain of Fire, Swarmers, or Necrotic Grips. Let's get into it. Needlestorm is the only super available to use, but it does pretty good damage and makes us look like Hierophant Green. This build is all about safety and survivability, so I went with Healing Ripped. Arcane Needle is the only melee we can use and has 3 charges that track and unravel enemies when thrown out. I opted to use Shackle Grenade because it can halt oncoming mages. However, if you like running around the map, definitely try out Grapple. I suggest trying out both to see what works for you. The aspects for the build are the Wanderer and WEAVEWALK. The Wanderer causes Destroy Tangles to release a suspending blast with a 7-meter radius. Thrown Tangles now seek enemies and explode in the same manner. Additionally, Threatening Kills now spawn Tangles. WEAVEWALK allows us to air dodge, putting us in the state of effective invisibility with 90% damage resistance. This state drains 25% melee ability energy per second and generates a Perch Threadling every 0.5 seconds. Dodging again leaves the state. For the Fragments, I equipped Thread of Evolution, Fury, and Generation. Evolution causes Threadlings to travel 30% faster and further, and causes them to deal 33% more damage. Fury causes dealing damage with Tangles to grant melee energy for each damage instance, and Generation grants grenade energy for every damage instance we deal to combatants. If WEAVEWALK were ever to get a second Fragment slot, I would also recommend adding Whisper of Wisdom, which grants an Orb of Power upon killing a suspended target. It's time to cover Kakyoin's school uniform. This build can swap between Necrotic Grips, Rain of Fire, and Swarmers on the fly and doesn't require any mod changes between them. Starting with the helmet, I use Harmonic Siphon, Special Ammo Finder, and Heavy Ammo Finder. Heavy Ammo Finder can be swapped for a different type of Siphon mod if you want more orb generation. With the arms, I slotted Grenade Kickstart, Momentum Transfer, and Bolstering Detonation. On the chestplate was Strand Reserves and 2 Variable Resistance mods. For the legs, I ran Strand Scavenger with Recuperation and Invigoration. If you're satisfied with Healing Rift, swap out Recuperation for Absolution or Insulation. Finally, on the bond were Outreach, Distribution, and Reaper. Because WEAVEWALK provides a ridiculous 90% damage resistance buff and effective invisibility, I don't think 100 resilience is required, but I would at least shoot for 70. The next best stats to max are Discipline and Strength for the Shackle Grenade and WEAVEWALK uptime. The Siphon, Scavenger, and Reserve mods on the armor will change depending on the weapons you decide to use in the weapon loadout section. Let's get to the good stuff now. For each of the weapon loadouts, I will leave notes at the bottom of the screen on how to play with the weapons optimally. Weapon loadout 1 is meant to be run with Rain of Fire. In the kinetic slot, I use Until Its Return for easy major chunking. It can roll with Cascade Point for ridiculously low kill times, and because it is a rapid fire frame, it has deep reserves. In the energy slot, I use Vex Mythoclast since it will proc Rain of Fire for the Radiant buff. I will mention that Vex Mythoclast now matches 360 RPM auto rifles and feels underwhelming. Should it return to its former glory, it'll be a solid weapon. In the heavy slot, I ran with Laser Painter to add long range DPS to the mix, and as another way to proc the Radiant buff. I farmed for an auto-loading holster and purple weapon roll. Weapon loadout 2 uses Swarmers, and one of 2 weapons in the kinetic slot, either Monte Carlo or Quicksilver Storm. Monte Carlo specializes in regenerating melee energy and allows for a near endless use of WEAVEWALK. With its catalyst, it becomes a lethal melee weapon, but it's still a little situational. Quicksilver Storm trades the melee regen for more DPS, AoE damage, and the ability to create tangles through its grenade launcher mode. Both are great for keeping WEAVEWALK available at all times. In the energy slot, I chose to use Iterative Loop for its high DPS and for Bolt Shot, which makes debuffing bosses easy. Half Truths takes up the heavy slot due to it being able to roll Eager Edge, which makes traversing maps a breeze. Weapon loadout 3 is reminiscent of the Strand Poison build and of course uses Necrotic Grips. For this loadout you can choose to run either Thorn or Osteostriga in the kinetic slot. However, since hand cannons received a hefty buff recently, I would recommend trying out Thorn. Both weapons spread poison explosions due to Necrotic Grips for easy ad clear. In addition, the poison will cause Perch Threadlings we create in WEAVEWALK to chase after enemies, so the cap is negligible. In the energy slot, we're going to double down on the room clearing with Forbearance. I crafted mine with the standard Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction roll for easy ad clear and higher healing from the Soul Drinker origin trait. In the heavy slot, we have Hothead to round out our DPS in boss situations. Weapon loadout 4 is another loadout focused around Swarmers. In the kinetic slot, we are going to use Witherhoard for the solid passive DPS and ag clear provides. It's a fire and forget weapon, and also allows for the detachment of perched threadlings and weavewalk. In the energy slot, I chose to use Bride's Love for the destabilizing rounds perk. Applying volatile and unravel to a group makes quick work of them and lets us focus more on the main target. In the heavy slot, I used Retrofit Escapade. A roll with 4 times the charm and target lock is great for boss DPS and gets amped up by the unravel effect we will be applying through our threadlings. Now let's briefly address the game loop. WEAVEWALK is the main star of the show, but we will need to keep our melee energy up to use it. Use your weapons, grenades, and rifts normally, all of which supply melee energy. When you anticipate a heavy boss hit, or begin to get in a bad situation, press your air dodge button mid-air to enter the weave. Every melee charge grants about 4 seconds in the weave, but it only takes about 2.5 seconds to gain 5 perched threadlings. So my main advice to you is to keep your usage under 4 seconds unless absolutely necessary. Also, your melee charge is 100% faster when you have 2 charges already, so it makes sense to not tap into the second charge too often. As long as you don't fully expend melee energy, you'll have a lot of flexibility. WEAVEWALK is a super fun aspect, one that I didn't think Bungie would even create. I'm happy that it's useful and has a place in the endgame. The only change I would make to it is to give it one more fragment slot, but even without it, it's perfectly fine. Thank you guys for watching, and happy farming.